Greetings, this is Greg, usually from Teslafaninsight, but today is our Super Bowl edition. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks for joining us. If you're your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We typically only do Tesla content, EVs, investing, etc., but we're taking our Super Bowl prediction break today, and why. And we have 5 reasons why it is my belief that Philly takes this one. So, as you may or may not know, I did play football for many years through, grade school, into junior high, and a bit in high school as well. And I actually think this is a matchup that everybody's been waiting for and wondering what exactly is going to happen. I've had a chance to watch a lot of videos and try to grasp analysis. But the analysis I thought was really great, that really fit what I think is going to happen in this game, relates to the Seattle when they played against the Patriots and how that game ended. So the first in 5 points I want to make is simply reviewing how and why that game worked. The defense for Seattle was excellent. Obviously, the Patriots had the GOAT and Tom Brady, who helped them obviously win that game. But something very strange happened in that game, which I think is what's going to end up deciding this game as well, which is with the ball on the 2-yard line and Marshawn Lynch ready to run the ball in for the touchdown, the offensive coordinator / coach decided to throw the ball, and it got picked off. And so I was really fascinated by how this decision making went down. Number 2, there's someone called Lao Tzu. And I think a Lao Tzu look at this game is that often the war is won or lost before it's ever fought. So if we look at it from that angle, let's go back to Kansas City and note the number of smart moves that they made, adding pieces with the Super Bowl run in mind. They weren't preparing for it, last week of the season, etc. They've got a number of receivers. They've got a number of players they brought in to fill in spots where they might have been a little bit weak heading into the championship again. The other side of this is actually very interesting because I just saw some video that I was impressed by / stunned and surprised by. That's part of my preparation for this. And that is that they actually have the quarterback. There's a guy named King Gilly, and he has a series of videos with the players from Philadelphia, as well as by himself, and visiting the city of Philadelphia, hyping them up for the Eagles' win. And I saw something that was kind of shocking to me, which is Jalen Hurts, the quarterback for Philly, was actually doing dance moves that required him to test his knee out. And as you see him move in that video, it's clear that he's ready to go relative to be able to play and run on that knee. And I think that's part of the reason why I think this is a W for Philly. Jalen Hurts is healthy enough to get his passes away without having his knee be an issue. And then he's also a threat to run. Number 3, yes, Patrick Mahomes may be the GOAT. He's one of the best ever. I totally agree with that. Sometimes, though, it's an overwhelming circumstance. So the third portion of my analysis that lands with Philly winning is the fact that there's a thing where several years ago there was there was a big game in the Super Bowl, and I think Denver was in it, but Matt Millen made a comment, best offense, best defense, they get together, let's see who wins. There's a caveat to that, and the caveat is that there's a difference between, let's say, a top 3 or 4 team playing a top 3 or 4 team, both offense and defense. And the difference is that you have a lot of people like Kirk Cousins is a really fascinating player for me because Kirk has made $200 or $300 million. He's done extremely well in the NFL. A lot of the statistics he generates tend to be after games have been decided. And so all of a sudden he will pump these numbers up. And at the end of the season, you'll be like, should we give him the money or not? And you see all these great numbers and you're like, wow, how can we not give him the money based on the statistics he put up? But there's also something called crunch time. How do you handle yourself in crunch time? And that's when Tom Brady would earn his money, is in crunch time. So the next, so in this case, what I want to argue is that the the offense defense comparison, both teams have the ability to score, to move the ball, etc. So there's a reason why I brought up the whole Pete Carroll and what happened in Seattle game, and that is that I want to say, I'll call it mental difficulties. So there are ways you can make mistakes in terms of fumbling the ball on a kickoff. You could have an errant throw. You could, touch the ball with one hand, or even the quarterback throwing it and it's knocked into the air by a defensive. There are a lot of things that can occur on the football field. One of the things I find interesting here is who will make the mental mistake. Now, all the guys on the Kansas City side of the ball have a great situation because not only do they have an experienced quarterback, one of the best ever, and he has all kinds of tools both within himself to run, but the fact that he's a smart guy and he is considered the best in the field right now. But they also have they just have a lot of advantages in that regard. The issue is who will make a mental mistake that results in a loss. And the example that comes to mind here for me is running Saquon Barkley or not. Now, as we all know, Saquon has had a great season. He's one of the top 2 or 3 running backs in the league. And he's done well when he was running. The funny thing I've noticed, though, is that the offensive coordinator has a thing where, particularly if Saquon has a long run, 50, 60 yards, he will tend to put him on the bench for a period of time, allowing the other running backs in. And once he does that, it definitely gives Saquon rest, but it gives ball opportunities to get 3 and outs from the other team. So I kind of believe this is a mental mistake. And the reason is that if you have somebody who's a home run hitter like that, and he and the line are so well gelled, pardon my digression, but what I keep thinking about is Terrell Owens when he was with the Denver Broncos, and he had an interview where he pointed out that he had gotten, there was a situation where he got his bell rung. He had a concussion. And so he went to the sidelines and told them, look, I can barely see straight. I want to come out right now. But the coaches said to him, no, you don't understand. We want you in, not because we're going to give you the ball, but because of the threat you represent changes how the defense has to deal with us. So one of the mistakes that I think Philly could make to give the game away is Saquon Barkley on the sideline means that the defense can relax. Who's on that defense can be relaxed as well because you don't have to have hitters with enough weight to bring Saquon down. Not only is he a great runner and he's kind of shifty, but because of the size of his legs, the shots it takes to bring him down are forceful and tend to have to come from somebody with excellent technique or a lot of size to back up the hits that they will lay on him. So So I think the mistake that would give this game away to Kansas City is if all of a sudden the folks at Philly decided, oh, we're only going to leave him on the field one or two plays a series or have him sit out for long periods of time. Because when he's on the field and he has perhaps the best offensive line in football blocking for him, there's little you can do. So that brings me to point number 4. So the answer to Saquon Barkley is actually quite simple. You either stack the box or de facto stack the box, meaning that the personnel that you put on the field will be a little heavier. Maybe you use, obviously you have your linemen that are down and they're underweight relative to the offensive line. You also have other ways you could back that whole thing up, and that is by having the backers, all the linebackers creep close to the line so they're available. So once you have that whole setup going, you have an interesting situation because both of the receivers and the tight end now get single coverage. So where the quarterback places the ball, if the box is fully stacked, is very interesting. The final piece of what I want to cover today is the Washington Redskins got caught cheating. And in this case, what they did wrong with Saquon Barkley was that they had a linebacker push up onto the line of scrimmage, and then they also brought a safety. The problem that popped up was a safety at, let's say, 230 pounds against a lineman at 330 is kind of, with long arms, is a mismatch. And one of the key runs by Saquon happened in that regard. So the only way I believe, so long-winded statement to say there are a lot of interesting matchups to look at. What I was thinking about before I made this show today was, just for the heck of it, as an argument, what if Philly decided to do a tush push for the entire game? Is a question. They're not going to do that. But think about it. In the case of a tush push, the other team actually stacks the box fully, and they know the tush push is coming. And how many times has it failed this year? Pretty much never. And a tush push is a 2 to 4 yard situation, right? So I believe that if in fact they make a commitment to the run, not unlike what the tush push is about, this game is a slaughter. And the win is by at least 1, but maybe 2 or even 3 scores. The next to last point I wanted to make is fatigue. So what tends to happen in football games is the big uglies, the guys that are in the trenches, work extremely hard. And your best guys are having to hit people on a regular basis. Once you have an offensive line of that size hitting you on a regular basis, and if they're staying on the field for extended periods of time, you could pretty much wipe out the defensive line of the Chiefs by the end of the first half. And that way, once you get into the second half, you have these tired guys that have been getting beat up for an extended period of time. So the way I see things going is that I believe that, Philly knows that they've got it. They also have the benefit of the fact that Jalen Hurts could pull the ball and run with it, and he could also get hurt doing that, but he could pull the ball and run is one of the possibilities that lurks. So the way I see the game going is that Kansas City will first have to prove that Jalen and company can't get 5 yards per run, 6 yards per run. And the way to prove that they can't do that is simply stack the box. Well, now you have the problem of, as soon as the box is stacked legitimately, because you can commit all those guys, and as soon as you realize it's a pass, not a run, you can have them jump out of it and get into the passing lanes. But if they legitimately are able to stop that, Philly will have to alternate between passes and runs in order to keep the defense honest so that they can actually block enough players to give Saquon room to run. So the answer that I see happening is absolutely. I believe, based on how good Patrick is and the time of year and the fact that he will run, that we're going to see a game where on most of his trips he'll either score a 3 or a 7 on every trip possible because they know that the number of trips they have is going to be limited. So it's my belief that if Philly doesn't forget the process of how to manage being the best running team in the league, and they will, on a minimal basis, do very short throws to Goddard or others, and simply exploit their advantages of a giant line and a great running back, they win easily. If they choose to get cute and go for the Pete Carroll plan of throwing the ball when they should be running a tush push, I think they definitely could lose. So it's fascinating to me, the concept of the weakest link. You can transition from the weakest link being, let's say, one player, a young player that doesn't know what he's doing, like Zay Flowers, costing a Super Bowl trip to Baltimore last year. It definitely could happen. But I think the bigger challenge, though, is a mental mistake, simply because you have so many players on both sides of the ball that are experienced, and they aren't going to make rookie mistakes, fumbling in opportune times and other activities like that. I think where the mistake will happen is a mental mistake at the coaching level. And I believe that the mistake they're going to make is, let's say Kansas City gets up a score. If Kellen Moore in this case, or the offensive coaches, get a little bit nervous about not wanting to get too far behind, they may turn into a passing team and give up the run. And it all of a sudden puts them in a situation where the ball in the air has a higher potential chance for being intercepted or other issues that you don't have when you run. So my assessment of this game is Philly wins. They will definitely need to get a 2-score lead by the end of the game so that Patrick can't sneak back in and take it away from them. But I think it's going to be a great game, and I think it's definitely a Philly win. And very minor, I'm arguing it might be a blowout. And the reason it could be a blowout is that, let's say for giggles, that all of a sudden the Eagles decide to commit heavily to the run. What's going to happen? All of a sudden, they're just going to be running the ball up and down the field when they get a hold of it. And Mahomes will come in. He may or may not get the touchdown. I definitely think he can get, anytime he wants, a field goal because of Kelsey and other receivers he has. But it's my belief that if we have a ball control running offense situation by Philly, this is not even competition. This is just a beatdown, because I think they will wear out the defensive line of Kansas City and then have the opportunity, once that line is worn out, to get as many yards as they want on the ground, and they don't have to put it in the air in order to move it, and therefore it doesn't provide opportunities. I left out special teams here. The reason is that most of the players that they're using are all seasoned vets, and they know how to secure the ball and all that stuff. So I'm not hugely, it's a possibility it could be a problem because of how fast the receivers are or the return people are for Kansas City. But it's nice not to have rookies or people that are inexperienced touching the ball during the kickoff and punts, etc. And so, notice that in this conversation, I haven't even discussed the defenses that much of both teams. In particular, the defense of Philly is actually pretty good. And it's not a foregone conclusion that every trip will be a score.
As well as to kill off pathogens, right? I'm talking about bacteria, fungus, parasites, that could be in your food. Okay, it's kind of a natural barrier, your immune barrier. And so as we age, we lose this stomach acid. People that are taking antacids are putting their pH in their stomach in the wrong direction, because the actual cause of heartburn, GERD, and acid reflux, most of the time, is this: your stomach acids are not strong enough, and that valve at the top of the stomach is not closing, so you're regurgitating acid. The pH in your stomach should be between 1 and 3, very, very acidic. And